I never thought this island was normal exactly. I mean, there are giant obelisks floating in the sky for Pete's sake. Not to mention that cave I found, which hid a platform similar to those found at the base of said obelisks. Well, similar except for those oddly shaped holes that were carved into its podium. I guess I just didn't care about all that. So long as I had my beautiful, unique, and untainted ecosystem to study, I was happy. But now... no, I shouldn't write it off just yet. Not before I arrive at Rockwell's. There's still a chance that my data is off, or that I missed something obvious. I won't give up on my paradise just yet. Smilodon brutalis is a solitary hunter, generally found in cold, lightly wooded areas. The island's mountains are the perfect habitat, as the mammal's fur keeps it safe from the bitter temperature. While its huge fangs are excellent for delivering death blows, the creature's claws can be just as deadly. Despite normally being a solitary creature, Smilodon brutalis are not opposed to hunting in small packs. In fact, they have to do this to take down larger prey, such as mammoths. Enough saber-tooths can take down a Carnotaurus, perhaps even a Tyrannosaurus. Either way, Smilodon brutalis should not be underestimated. While not as fast as raptors, there's no denying the saber-tooth's increased resilience and power. In addition, well-trained saber-tooth can be taught to use their claws to flay corpses. This may sound morbid, but it is among the best ways to quickly gather large quantities of hide from the giant beasts of the island. Coelodonta utilicero is a friendly herbivore, common to the tundra and grassland regions of the island. It is a large and dangerous creature, though it seems fairly trusting of the fauna around it. Once attacked, Coelodonta begins charging towards its foe. It builds up momentum as it charges, and depending on its ultimate impact speed, the results can be terrifying. With enough room to charge, it can even skewer the largest creatures in just one gore. Despite how powerful Coelodonta are, many tribes still hunt them extensively due to their unique resources. Its horns can ground into a highly arousing powder, and its thick fur can support many insulating outfits, making the Coelodonta in high demand. Even less advanced tribes use packs to hunt them down, though at significant peril. When not being hunted for its horns, Coelodonta makes an impressive beast of burden. Its ability to take on far larger opponents, provided sufficient charging room, as well as its sizable load capacity, make it a solid addition to any trader party or gathering expedition.
The latest Broth of Enlightenment trials have concluded, and as expected, I am disappointed in the results. Though the primates I tested it on showed increased aptitude for learning, I do not believe any of them have truly ascended to a higher level of intelligence. Well, bugger the little blighters, I say. My assistants have almost finished preparing my supplies for my next expedition, and I have drafted a letter to send to the Iron Brotherhood ahead of my departure. Soon enough, I'll have forgotten all about them. Pardon the interruption, it seems that I have a guest. Now, just what is Mr. Nerva doing here? I suppose I'll find out.
Leopleurodon magicus is a mid-sized ocean creature, typically between 20 and 25 feet long. I've yet to directly encounter one myself, but from the tales other tribes have shared, it compares to no other on the island. The rumours indicate that this beautiful creature has magical properties. However, the sightings are so rare, it's hard to decipher old tribes' tales from the underlying truth. They say that Leopleurodon is an elusive creature that can harness its magical powers to retreat from predators or aggressors of any kind. But the beekeeping tribes claim that their honey is so sweet that not even the Leopleurodon could resist. Leopleurodon is rumoured to bring good fortune to those adventurous enough to tame it. With the Leopleurodon by their side, tribes have apparently managed to obtain treasure beyond their wildest dreams. Supposedly, even after you've gained its favour, it remains incredibly aloof, and will eventually use its abilities to escape even the strictest of captivity. While Kentrosaurus aethiopicus is considerably smaller than its close relative, Stegosaurus regium, it is much more formidable in matters of self-defense. In fact, it is arguably the pound-for-pound champion of not only the Stegosaurus, but when encountered in close-knit fighting packs, ranks atop the island's herbivorous dinosaurs in general. Thanks to its wickedly sharp defensive spikes, any creature that attacks Kentrosaurus is likely to be reversely wounded in turn, and it is capable of piercing even the thickest of hides and armors when it goes on the offensive. I have personally witnessed the Kentrosaurus fell much larger predators in a single such impaling maneuver. Underestimating Kentrosaurus can be a fatal mistake, particularly when it's in a herd. When traveling in numbers, Kentrosaurus seems to grow much more aggressive, increasing the range at which it will defend its territory. Survivors have seen little success in their attempts to ride Kentrosaurus, owing to its spikes and hot-headed temperament. However, a tamed herd of Kentrosaurus can effectively defend a compound and take on larger carnivores. Once impaled by its attack, the Kentrosaurus slams the attacker onto the ground continuously, helping to turn the tide of a pitched battle. Among the island's swamp-based threats, Sarcosuchus excubitor is a lot like what you might expect from a giant crocodile, a patient killing machine. It spends much of its days lazily waiting in the water for prey to walk near. That said, it is not opposed to scurrying onto land and pressing the issue when hungry. A good tactic for escaping many predators is to jump into the water, as most are slow swimmers. This is a bad tactic for escaping a Sarcosuchus, obviously, as they are actually faster in the water than they are on land. Whether in land or water, it utilizes a well-rounded arsenal of attacks to display its prowess as a hunter. If it desires to grab a predator and spin into a death roll, quickly lunge forward for a surprise attack, or target a foe directly behind it, it is able to do so with extreme ease. Sarcosuchus is a ferocious creature that even causes the fearless piranha to flee at the sight of it. Despite being river-dwelling creatures, Sarcosuchus seem quite at ease in the oceans. More than a few fishing communities use them as mounts, simply to help fight off megalodons, or to gain better access to the resources found within the reefs. Well, I've combed through more carnival droppings than I care to calculate, and I can't say they provided many answers. All the predators in this region have very similar diets. With so many different predators hunting the same prey, the populations of all these species shouldn't be sustainable. Yet I've found nothing to indicate that any population shift is actually happening. It's just bizarre. The longer I'm here, the more I realize that this region shouldn't exist. Its climate is out of sync with the rest of the island. Many of the creatures here are millions of years ahead of the dinosaurs, and the ecosystem is almost static. Something's off. I need to review my notes.
I am starting to become quite cross with Mr. Nerva's impatience. I had barely any time at all to study the obelisk before we set out again, this time to that cave Miss Walker mentioned. I wonder, does he believe that she knows more about the obelisks than I do? Nonsense! Any fool could see that I am the superior scientist. Besides, I am his official advisor while she is his prisoner. She isn't even privy to my presence. Nonetheless, I feel compelled to prove my scientific mettle. Whatever is in that cave, I shall be the one to discover its purpose. The mysteries of the obelisks are mine to uncover, not Miss Walker's or even Mr. Nerva's. Mine. I have always tried to maintain a strict neutrality when it comes to tribal matters, but then again, I have never had an offer this tempting from someone as respectable as Mr. Nerva. Not only has he offered to provide me with test subjects, but he has also expressed a mutual interest in investigating the obelisks. All he asks from me is that I provide him with reliable counsel. I would trust few tribes to be able to make good on such promises, but Mr. Nerva's new legion is perhaps the most powerful tribe on the island. Indeed, if they maintain their current trajectory, they may be the only powerful tribe on the island. His offer is worth considering, at the very least.
The much larger ancestor of water birds like the stork or pelican, Pelagornis myosinus shares many traits with its modern-day brethren. However, it seems to spend far more time hunting for fish over the open deep sea. In fact, I have rarely spotted a wild Pelagornis anywhere near the coasts of the main island, as it prefers to rest its wings by paddling on the ocean's surface rather than waddling along the island's beaches. Perhaps this behaviour is a result of its survival instincts. The early Miocene was a post-dinosaur epoch after all, and Pelagornis would not be accustomed to such predators. Considering how quickly it flees from humans, one can hardly blame its caution. Because of its ability to fly, walk, and surface swim, a tamed Pelagornis is one of the island's most versatile mounts. But this comes at a cost. The same webbed feet that allow Pelagornis to serenely maneuver along the ocean's surface prevent it from carrying prey off the ground, which may limit its appeal to some survivors. Parasaurolophus amphibio has one of the more interesting adaptations of any creature I've seen on the island. Like all parasaur, it has a signature crest on its head. Very docile at first, I've been able to approach the creature without disturbing it. If startled, however, the creature can vocalize a distress call to the surrounding area that warns of danger. Parasaurolophus appears to be low on the food chain and is hunted by everything, creatures and humans alike, which explains its skittish nature. It is a good source of meat and hide, if you can manage to keep up with it long enough to kill it. Despite being what most tribes consider a relatively useless creature to tame, I once met an interesting woman who had tamed an entire herd of them. She informed me that many overlooked the creature's potential. She even graciously gifted me a fancy saddle to put on my own Parasaurolophus one day. As a relatively simple creature to domesticate, Parasaurolophus is commonly one of the first mounts a tribe will be able to acquire. Its ability to run relatively fast for lengthy intervals makes it a solid mode of medium-range transportation, though it has almost no ability to defend itself or its rider in a traditional sense. Smaller creatures, however, appear to be frightened by the horn of Parasaurolophus, although it doesn't do much damage. It also has decent weight-bearing capabilities, which could prove useful for nomadic tribes as they work to establish a presence on the island.
Well, I think I've gotten as far in my studies of the obelisks as my archaeological expertise will take me. A shame, really. This has been such a joyous little diversion that I hate to see it end. Oh, Rockwell, you old twit. You've forgotten the origins of this little excursion. Spelunking. Did you yourself not hypothesize that there may be more artifacts hidden elsewhere on this island? Surely you can't give up before confirming that. No, certainly not. Nor can I be expected to scour the Ark's corners alone. Perhaps someone can spell in my stead. Better yet, perhaps someone has already spelunked.
Paraceratherium giganticus is a massive, long-necked herbivore that inhabits some of the island's grasslands. It resembles a gigantic horse/rhinoceros hybrid, but is over twice the size of either. Paraceratherium is a very peaceful and friendly creature. Barring some surprises yet in store for me, I can safely say that Paraceratherium is among the largest mammals on the island. While its size means that Paraceratherium can provide an incredible amount of food, it also makes it dangerous when hunted. A beast of burden second to the Brontosaurus, Paraceratherium is an excellent worker and is sufficient in size to support a platform set upon which structures can be built. It is a naturally friendly animal and is not afraid of humans. However, despite its normally calm demeanor, when it or its owner is provoked by aggression, Paraceratherium can quickly become a real threat to the attacker and will use its girth to its advantage in combat. Equus magnus appears to be an ancestor of the modern horse. Based on its stripes, it may be the African variant of Equus giganteus, which appeared in North America during the Ice Age, but that is pure conjecture. Its behavior in the wild is similar to that of other wild members of the Equus genus. It sustains itself by grazing, while keeping safe from predators by living in herds and outrunning its attackers via superior speed and stamina. Horse and man have long been partners in survival, and this remains true on the island. In Equus, survivors will find a trusty steed or pack animal that can carry them swiftly across land. Taming an Equus has proven interesting, requiring carefully approaching the creature in the wild, mounting it, and then carefully soothing over time by feeding it vegetables. In fact, Equus reliability has led some survivors to construct special saddles for them. I even encountered a man who added extra saddle pouches that doubled as mobile crafting stations for chemical supplies, foodstuffs, and other items. Although not as robust as what you might find within a village, this utility helped him live a nomadic, solitary lifestyle. Some survivors employ Equus to herd and wrangle other creatures with a specialized lasso. This tool is sometimes effective for self-defense as well, as Equus is limited in battle on its own, at least compared to aggressive prehistoric carnivores.
Having readily available subjects has helped my experiments tremendously, even if their numbers dwindled over time. Not only was I able to curb the side effects of my freer curry's endothermic properties, but I managed to bring out an additional benefit of the mixture. Now it also lowers the subject's metabolism, letting them go longer without needing food. Marvelous! I hadn't even considered that as a possibility. Why, with all I've learned from these experiments, I imagined that I could reverse the effects of the curry and create a concoction to aid survival in extreme heat as well. I must find more volunteers, post-haste.
Tapahara imperator is a marvel to watch in the wild. It has astonishing agility compared to the island's other flyers, thanks in large part to the rudder-like fin that extends from its snout to the back of its skull. Initially, they thought the fin was simply composed of keratin, but closer inspection has led me to believe that it is actually some kind of sensory organ. Not only does it decrease Tapahara's turning radius even at high speeds, but it apparently provides Tapahara with extra information to help it fly through the air with unparalleled grace. I've even seen the Tapahara hover and strafe side to side in the air without moving forward at all. It's quite remarkable. The creature also makes effective use of razor-sharp claws to latch onto surfaces, such as the trunks of tall trees, holding its position indefinitely. Warlike tribes appear to consider Tapahara the equivalent of a versatile rotor aircraft, capable of rapid positional changes and aggressive agility. When domesticated, the Tapahara is typically outfitted with a unique triple-rider saddle, enabling 2 passengers to wield handheld weaponry while the pilot takes the reins. When the Tapahara is latched onto a surface, both the passengers and pilot are able to make full use of their weapons together. Evidently, what this skittering creature lacks in distance, stamina, constitution, and weight-carrying capacity, it makes up for in maneuverability and combat versatility.
I am perplexed. Even with an expanded number of test subjects, I just cannot find the passion that I once had for my research. I truly thought that my recent adventure had lit a fire in my belly, but I constantly find myself losing focus. Confound it all. Perhaps said adventure itself is the problem. Thinking about it, I am always eager to discuss the obelisks and the artifacts I found with my assistants, even when I'm not in the mood for research. There is a certain allure to them that I cannot describe, something that causes my thoughts to drift in their direction, like the pull of a strong tide. But it could simply be a passing fancy. I must give myself more time. The wondrous properties of the flora on this island will never cease to amaze me. If I'd told my colleagues in London that I could create a concoction capable of erasing someone's memories, I'd be laughed out of the room and never invited to tea again. Yet here it sits, my mind wipe tonic. As usual, I've had tribal leaders grovelling at the gates of Rockwell Manor just for the tiniest of samples, and for the recipe, oh, the bounties I've been offered. I'm not interested in their riches, though. I have their protection, supplies for my studies, and all the time in the world. What more could I ask for?
Leedsichthys conviviumbrosia is probably the largest fish in the waters around the island. Its meat is also extremely succulent, a surprise given its size. It is often traded with the same value as prime meat, and colloquially called prime fish. Of course, not all Leedsichthys meat is this high quality, but most of it is. While the demand for Leedsichthys meat is high, the fish is notoriously difficult to track and hunt. Between its large size, powerful attacks, incredible speed when it turns to flee, and humankind's general ineptitude on open water, actually killing a Leedsichthys is one of the island's more difficult tasks. The hunt for an extremely elusive breed of the fish, the fabled great albino Leedsichthys, has been known to drive otherwise sensible men and women mad with obsession, as if all evil were visibly personified and made practically assailable in this one creature. Despite its large size and the fact that it may well be strong enough to carry heavy loads, Leedsichthys does not appear to be intelligent enough to tame. Nevertheless, some large tribes keep an enormous pen with a few Leedsichthys trapped inside for cultivating purposes, as bits of prime fish can be repeatedly scraped off the gargantuan beast without killing it. Utahraptor prime is an incredibly aggressive subspecies of Utahraptor found on the island. It tends to travel in small hunting packs, attacking smaller prey with its sharp teeth and enlarged foreclaws. When hunting in packs, the pack leader can vocalize a signal that acts as a battle cry. Be prepared to run or fight if you hear the call of the Utahraptor. The pack will repeat the calls and attack with much greater intensity. One of the faster creatures on the island, Utahraptor often uses their pack numbers to their advantage by swarming around their prey before it can react. The large curved talon on the second toe of this subspecies seems particularly suited for dealing significant damage. Utahraptor prime usually kill its prey with numerous slashing and biting attacks in rapid sequence. What the Utahraptor lacks in size, it makes up for in ingenuity. Rather than chase down smaller creatures, Utahraptor will pounce and pin its prey to the ground rather than chasing it around. Despite its normally aggressive nature, Utahraptors have become one of the primary combat mounts for roaming bands of raiders, as well as scouts for larger collectives. Those who ride Utahraptor claim they are difficult to tame, but then fiercely loyal. As a carnivore, once tamed, they require a steady stream of meat to sustain. From afar, it's hard to believe that Quetzalcoatlus is one of the largest avians on the island. It shares a similar silhouette with the pteranodon and nests near the absolute highest peaks. Upon closer inspection, though, Quetzalcoatlus is an enormous creature of tremendous power. I find it strange that such a large, imposing beast would be so skittish. Unlike other creatures of its size, it is more likely to flee than fight. I suppose the decision to flee from any trouble keeps the species alive on an island with so many dangerous predators. But then, how does it eat enough to sustain its massive size? Tamed Quetzalcoatlus have a very specific role on the island. Too slow to be an efficient local transport, and too weak to be an effective warbird. The tribes I have encountered tend to employ it as a mass carrier. Quetzalcoatlus is primarily used by these masters of the skies to safely carry vast quantities of supplies, creatures, and human cargo from one base to another without tiring.
Once your fall is complete, stay close to the sanctuaries. Within them, small pockets of life still flourish in an otherwise barren garden. Beyond their spheres of influence, you will find an endless sea of decay, ruled by shadows and death. The first of these sanctuaries is the Great City. Though it is no longer a metropolis, a jungle blooms in its place, and you may find a modicum of shelter within its crumbling walls. The others will be more familiar to you, if only for the towers you'll find at their center. Those are the source of their power, the obelisks. They are not quite the same as the ones you're familiar with. Not quite as advanced, but that's to be expected. They're an older model, precursors, or more aptly, prototypes.
I was ever so glad to see Miss Walker again. My assistants are clever in their own right, but dear Helena is still the only person that I feel comfortable diving into my deeper theories with. I fear that I may have kept her from getting a word in edgewise, though. Once I got going on the obelisks, why, I just couldn't contain my enthusiasm. My word, I really have become quite enamored with the subject, haven't I? Well, that settles it. After this next set of trials, I shall go check on the Iron Brotherhood's progress. Perhaps I can convince Miss Walker to join me. We could make a real scientific expedition out of it.
Pachyrhinosaurus midisora is a medium-sized herbivore, found almost everywhere but the island's mountains. It is generally calm and ignores all other nearby creatures unless it is attacked. Pachyrhinosaurus possesses a particularly unique survival skill. When threatened, its massive nasal boss releases a chemical into the air that calms other nearby creatures, making them less likely to attack it. Affected creatures are sometimes hungry enough to ignore the effect, and humans seem immune to it. Conversely, it can seemingly invert this phenomenon at will and coerce creatures into attacking it. Pachyrhinosaurus is an excellent starting mount for anyone new to taming. It is fairly easy to train, can carry enough to be a simple pack animal, and is not as deadly as some of the larger herbivores. Additionally, Pachyrhinosaurus can release its unique chemical on command to protect itself and its rider from nearby predators, or draw attention if desired, making it a potential lifesaver in a pinch. Megatherium formipava is one of the larger mammals on the island. This is most shocking because it is essentially a giant sloth, if you crossbred it with an elephant and a bear. Because of its size and girth, the Megatherium is uncommonly resistant to being knocked unconscious. Despite primarily being a herbivore, a typical Megatherium is very intent on consuming the island's many insects. It is particularly adept at removing their insides without damaging much of the shell, maximizing extraction of chitin. The otherwise slow and peaceful Megatherium becomes faster and aggressive in the presence of these creatures. Megatherium is an incredibly useful creature to tame, so long as you don't intend to fight other tribes. Its enormity, high resistance to torpor, and voracious attitude toward insects and arachnids makes it ideal for farming large quantities of chitin from the bugs of the island, or simply defending against them. The Eutyrannus sievus is believed to be related to the Tyrannosaurus rex, but it is noticeably different upon first glance. Feathered creatures are not necessarily viewed as dangerous predators in the same light as other theropods. However, the Eutyrannus strikes fear into even the island's most skilled hunters. There are few wild predators that are able to pack hunt alongside the generally hostile Carnotaurus, like the Eutyrannus does, with such ease. It is also the only creature I've seen to consistently induce a state of panic in opponents with its roar. Upon hearing it, most creatures in the area will flee for safety. A domesticated Eutyrannus can be a powerful offensive or defensive addition to war parties. With its mighty roar, it can induce fear in opposing creatures. Meanwhile, Eutyrannus can be trained to develop a confidence-boosting battle cry, which counteracts enemy attempts to induce fear, while also bolstering the resolve of allies, and may even draw wild Carnotaurus to its aid. These unique leadership qualities make the Eutyrannus a versatile and, at times, a necessary creature to have on your side during large-scale confrontations.
After many days of scouring the island upon Archimedes, and many more fruitless conversations with the witless, savage sods that seem to make up most of this island's population, I have finally found the spelunkers I need. A tribe to the northwest called the Iron Brotherhood has apparently found 3 artifacts themselves, and it's clear that said relics share an origin with my own. In exchange for my artifact, the Brotherhood agreed to report any findings to me straight away as they continue their search. What stupendously good fortune! Now I can return to my alchemical studies with renewed vigor, while they crawl through the island's caverns in my stead. Brilliant!
Onychonycteris becuncola is one of the few omnivores I've seen on the island. They seem to live primarily off the mushrooms and moss within the caves, but they attack almost any non-insect on sight. They avoid Titanoboa whenever possible, which leads me to believe the snake to be a natural predator of Onychonycteris. While flying in the dark caves would be difficult for any creature, Onychonycteris' ability to use echolocation has allowed it to adapt perfectly. It can be found idly flying around the caves as often as it can be found hanging from bits of the cave ceilings. Not large enough to be used as mounts, and not strong enough to carry much, Onychonycteris still functions well as a guard animal. Whether protecting a vacant home or members of a tribe, their relatively vicious nature has its uses. Moschop cebu mutante in the wild is a lazy, cowardly creature that typically lives in the island's forests, primarily making its home among the great redwoods of the western regions. It survives by being extremely flexible in its eating habits and completely averse to fighting. It never starves, since it can eat just about anything. It runs at the slightest provocation, but is still often preyed upon. What makes Moschops particularly interesting is what it can be trained to do with its eating habits. With a versatile palate and tough teeth, Moschops can be tamed for a unique ability. Over time, it can be accurately taught exactly which things to gnaw, increasing the likelihood of harvesting the specific resource its master desires. For example, teach it to prioritize chewing prime meat, and prime meat will be easier to harvest from the flesh it consumes. Likewise for rare plants materials, and so forth. Just don't expect Moschops to protect you though. Even after taming, it will quickly flee when enemies are nearby. Regardless of being fed well, increasing its strength, or how much affection you shower on it, Moschops retains its inherent cowardly nature. Its lack of combat might deter the use of this companion, but the ability to ride Moschops while making use of its diverse harvesting is a rare treat.
I decided to seek out volunteers for my next experiment among the island's larger tribes. I thought that surely they would be willing to help after I patiently moderated so many of their frivolous disputes. How idealistic of me. Instead, they have yet another favor to ask. Apparently, there's a new tribe that's behaving rather aggressively, and no one can successfully negotiate with its leader. So naturally, they have turned to me. It's rather bothersome, but I can't touch their logic. If Sir Edmund Rockwell cannot reason with this Nerva fellow, then who can?
Tusoteuthis vampyrus is a very aggressive water predator. Approximately 9 meters long, Tusoteuthis is a terror of the deep. Once it grabs its prey, it slowly crushes it into submission while using the talons on its tentacles to siphon and drink the victim's blood. Tusoteuthis is a terrifying opponent for several reasons. Firstly, its grab slowly renders its victim unconscious, so death isn't the only concern. Secondly, its vampiric blood drain instantly revitalizes it, even during combat. Finally, if Tusoteuthis is losing the fight, it sprays a cloud of ink into the surrounding water, blinding its attackers to cover a sneaky escape. One of the major benefits of taming Tusoteuthis is harvesting its ink. Unlike normal ink, Tusoteuthis ink is very oily and can even be refined into fuels such as gasoline. Between that and Tusoteuthis' distinct capability to grab and carry large creatures underwater, it makes for an excellent aquatic tame, despite its slower speed. The tribe that calls themselves the Howling Wolves has really made this northern adventure a lot easier. Well, them and Athena. She's right at home here. I don't think I'll ever be able to repay Rockwell for just up and giving me an Argentavis. He said our conversations are payment enough, but I still feel guilty. I should remember to collect some floral samples for him while I'm here. Anyway, tagging along with the wolves has been a good introduction to the region, but I think I'm ready to make my own way. To make real scientific conclusions, I need to observe these animals undisturbed in their natural habitat for long periods of time. Usually found in the deepest parts of the water around the island, Ammonitena multiamicus has a strange relationship with the other creatures of the deep. It must do something beneficial for them, since every nearby sea creature defends Ammonitena when it is attacked. What this distinct symbiosis is based on, alas, I have not yet discovered. Ammonitena has also made its way into the deeper parts of many underwater caves. Even within these caves, the creature will draw attention if assaulted, making harvesting its resource-rich shell a tricky proposition, depending on what other dangers may be lurking nearby. Like many of the untamable ocean dwellers, Ammonitena still has enough utility to be a valuable hunting target. If a tribe is willing to risk the wrath of nearby would-be protectors, Ammonitena bile can be harvested from the innards of its corpse. This bile can then be worked over with other chemicals to produce powerful concoctions, the most notable being a mixture that causes creatures to become enraged and attack the source of the scent. Fairly unremarkable by the island standards, Oncorhynchus grexlamia is a generally passive fish. Its main form of protection is swimming in a large school. Oncorhynchus does not like conflict, and generally swims away from anything larger than itself at very high speeds. Once provoked, however, Oncorhynchus becomes quite aggressive, along with its nearby brethren. It locks onto its prey with its long saber teeth and begins draining the creature's blood. This loss of blood is not too dangerous alone, but when a school of Oncorhynchus attack at once, their target quickly loses speed and stamina from blood loss, drowning if it cannot breathe underwater. Like many of the smaller fish found on or around the island, Oncorhynchus cannot be tamed, but it is often herded and harvested for its resources. In particular, Certain cuts of Oncorhynchus meat are considered to have superb quality and are often referred to as prime fish, used for specific high-end concoctions and taming the island's many piscivorous creatures. Daeodon comidentis is the largest known species of Entelodon, an omnivorous family of ancient mammals that are sometimes referred to as hell pigs. Even though Daeodon has as many similarities to modern hippopotamidae as it does to swiner, I found that to be a suitable nickname. Daeodon is as mean as it looks, and any survivor who wanders too close will find that out the hard way. As an omnivore with a voracious appetite, Daeodon scavenges, forages, and hunts to survive. It has little qualms when it comes to its diet, and that has helped it thrive on the island's harsh tundra. Its temper hasn't hurt either, as many would-be predators would rather seek out less vicious prey. Many tribes have made excellent use of Daeodon packs within their war parties, not only because of its fierce nature, but due to its extraordinary ability to rapidly heal itself. I've theorized that this healing factor is why it seems to have such a high metabolism, though what is particularly extraordinary is its capability to share this benefit with nearby creatures. I've even heard some survivors mention that the Daeodon also has a unique ability to root out rare mushrooms as well. It is difficult to be angry with Hementaria ledus, despite its rather terrible nature. The creature has practically no intelligence and just attaches to any nearby living flesh in an attempt to drain that creature's blood. Removing Hementaria requires precision blade work or access to an open flame. Both of these can be nearly as dangerous to the host as to the leech itself. Once Hementaria attaches to a host, it drains blood at a rapid pace, and the host experiences hunger, loss of health, and lowered stamina. Some Hementaria are also carriers for a dangerous disease I've dubbed swamp fever, which persists beyond the leech's own lifespan. Few creatures on the island are transmitters for this disease, and it can ultimately be cured with a rare medicine. While Hementaria is not intelligent enough to be tamed, it is always useful to keep a few around for antidotes and fishing lures. When processed properly, Hementaria venom can be made into a powerful antivenom. So in addition to all of the oddities I found with wild megalodons, here's the real cherry on top. Taming them is a piece of piss. A bit of training, and they're more obedient than the family dog. Now, I've heard of sharks getting very rudimentary training over a year or so, but not to this extent. Certainly not so easily. Sharks aren't mammals or even avians. They're fish. They rely more on instinct, or to put it simply, they're not very smart. You shouldn't be able to ride one like a jet ski. I'm trying to keep an open mind like Rockwell suggested, but this just feels wrong. Pachycephalosaurus is a bit of a conundrum. It is a very passive, even friendly herbivore, common to much of the island. At the same time, it is one of the most dangerous herbivores that I have yet encountered on the island. Its charging headbutt is a display of sheer physical power and can kill much more quickly than you might think. While Pachycephalosaurus is generally friendly, it has a short temper. Its fight or flight response always seems to choose fight. The Pachycephalosaurus becomes extremely aggressive once attacked. Additionally, it is an incredibly fast sprinter, so escaping from an enraged Pachycephalosaurus is very difficult. Pachycephalosaurus is an excellent battle mount for those who want to ride a smaller, nimble combatant into the fray. Because of its particular musculature, it cannot effectively carry large quantities of resources. It can, however, move with brief, magnificent bursts of speed, and its headbutt is simply devastating. Ranging from 8 to 12 feet tall, Forest Racidae rapidosalta is a highly aggressive avian that is just barely capable of very brief flight. Instead, it uses its wings primarily for balance during its high-speed sprints. Forest Racidae flight is actually closer to an impressive sustained leap or glide that is assisted and lengthened by flapping its wings. Forest Racidae shows interesting traits related to theropods, such as Utahraptor, Carnotaurus, and Tyrannosaurus. It has many similar traits, such as general shape and predator patterns, but its attacks tend towards lightning-fast dashes and big slashes. Forest Racidae is an effective combat mount, particularly for harassing and scouting. Riders of Forest Racidae gain most of the benefits of a fast, mobile, ground-based theropod, while also gaining some of the freedom of movement from a flyer, assuming the rider can coax Forest Racidae into staying in the air over a long leap.
I've decided to take a brief vacation from the laboratory. Well, I say that I've decided to, but the whole thing was my assistant Isabel's idea. She noticed that I'd been quite ruffled lately and suggested that I take a bit of time to myself before rushing headlong into my next experiment. Such an observant young woman, that Isabel. She's somewhat lacking as a chemist, but she understands my moods almost better than I do. I dare say that an old-fashioned adventure will do me some good. Nothing like some rigorous recreation to clear the mind. Perhaps I'll go spelunking. Yes, a splendid idea. I know just the place for it.
A smaller relative of Sarcosuchus, Caprosuchus paludentium, is a water-based carnivore primarily found lurking among the island's swamps. A naturally fast runner that is even faster in the water. It is a solitary hunter that picks off small to medium creatures, especially those isolated from their pack. When attacking, Caprisuchus uses two main tactics. First, it patiently waits below the water surface, and when the target is sufficiently close by, will perform a lateral jump that it uses to quickly close distance with its prey and drag it underwater. Secondly, it attacks the prey's vital areas specifically to drain its stamina. These two techniques effectively prevent most creatures from escaping Caprisuchus once an assault has begun. Survivors are generally split about the usefulness of Caprisuchus. Some love its speed, both in and out of the water, essentially making it among the fastest, small-sized, all-terrain mounts when travelling through the wetlands. Others do not like how relatively frail Caprisuchus is, and do not think its high speed and ensnaring attacks make up for this shortcoming. I'm not entirely sure how Therizinosaurus multiensis stays populated on the island. It is surprisingly slow for its size and is a solitary predator, so no pack to back it up. I suppose the fact that its sheer power rivals Tyrannosaurus is the only thing that allows this very aggressive, medium-sized predator to thrive. The claws of Therizinosaurus are some of the most versatile biological tools I've encountered. As adept at removing trees and foliage from Therizinosaurus' path as they are at piercing the thick shells and hide of the island's most defensive creatures if backed into a fight. A tamed Therizinosaurus is one of the most versatile mounts a survivor can have. It can be trained to use its claws brutally or delicately, allowing the rider to primarily harvest with enhanced efficiency the specific kinds of resources that he or she needs. And in combat, these same claws can pierce straight through the toughest armor. This flexibility more than makes up for its inability to carry the large loads of the island's many herbivorous beasts of burden. Phiomia ignavis is another of the island's generally docile herd animals. They are small enough that almost any predator can bring them down, but large enough to provide plenty of meat. Were it not for the protection of the herd and their instinct to run from any predator, these would almost certainly be hunted to extinction. Phiomia's tusks and trunk make it especially suited to scavenging plant life from the ground. It uses its tusks to dig up loose plant life, then uses its stubby trunk to scoop the foliage into its mouth. Adult Phiomia often dig up food for their young, and watching a baby Phiomia attempt to use its trunk can be quite amusing. While it is completely possible to ride a Phiomia around, they are a meagre choice. They work very well, however, as pack mules. If you feed the Phiomia a stimberry, it serves as a laxative in the creature's digestive system. Knowing this, tribal communities often keep a herd of these as livestock to produce mass quantities of fertilizer. Seeing the likes of Mammothus steinkaput alongside dinosaurs is still strange. This behemoth towers over many creatures on the island and doesn't seem to. In the wild, Apis lithohaemiodrones never stray far from their nests, which they build high in the island. Still no answers as to why the megalodons are so territorial. But I was privy to something even more extraordinary. Megalodon mating behavior. No one. Lystrosaurus amica-fidelis is a small herbivore, common to much of the island. Only about 2 feet long, it is not high on the food chain and eats small plant life. The island's poisonous insects seem to have little effect on Lystrosaurus. Despite being among the island's tinier herbivores, Lystrosaurus is an incredibly resilient survivor. It recovers its torpor and health much faster than most creatures, which makes rendering a Lystrosaurus unconscious a rather difficult affair. Not surprisingly, Lystrosaurus is an extremely loyal pet once tamed. It's a very fast learner, so it gains experience much more quickly than most other creatures. Additionally, its presence nearby appears to inspire allies, making them learn more rapidly as well. Thusly, Lystrosaurus is an excellent addition to any tribe's hunting party. Elasmosaurus remus pisa is typically found in the deep oceans and has a strange role in the oceanic food chain. It almost
Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. When I chose that remote northern cave as the site of my spectacular spelunking sojourn, I never imagined that I'd find such wonders within. Granted, I don't know what this specific wonder does exactly, but it's fascinating to examine. It's like nothing I've ever seen. I don't even recognize the materials that it's composed of, and it's constantly pulsing with some sort of latent energy. What is it? Is it unique? Or are there similar artifacts just waiting to be discovered beneath the island's surface? My, how invigorating. Isabel was right. This was exactly what I needed. I feel like a young man again.
Megapiranha magnetmorsis is a carnivorous fish found fairly commonly in the rivers and ponds of the island. Its bite is incredibly powerful. I've even seen them break through the armored turtles. Among the most vocal creatures on the island, Ichthyornis piscoquis actually appears to be a relatively normal seagull. It primarily eats fish, and its distinctive cries can be heard.
The new legion is finally on the march, and not a moment too soon. Mr. Nerva runs his tribe exceptionally well, but their compound is positively Spartan. I don't think I saw a single piece of decor anywhere. It certainly made me miss the comforts of Rockwell Manor, I'll say that. At any rate, we are apparently in pursuit of a barbaric beast queen. According to the men, she feasts on the flesh of her enemies alongside her army of monsters. Dreadful. Mr. Nerva is convinced that she is heading towards an obelisk, but I see no cause for alarm. No mere heathen could hope to uncover its secrets, and certainly not alone. I admit I have been rather coy with Mr. Nerva when it comes to the true nature of the obelisks. As a military man, the obelisks would naturally be more useful to him if they were some sort of weapon, and I have made sure to allude to that possibility from time to time. It is not as though I am selling my gracious host a falsehood. After all, I have neither any proof that the obelisks could be weaponized nor any evidence to the contrary. Their purpose is entirely theoretical at this stage, and if twisting those theories will convince Mr. Nerva to march on the obelisks any sooner, then so be it.
The most interesting thing that I've observed about Mei Yin's animals has been what they don't do. They never fight. Among creatures that have been domesticated for generations, like cats or dogs, that's normal. But there's a reason zoos keep their animals in separate enclosures. Certain instincts are hard to curb, and there should definitely be more disputes among such a diverse group. Mei Yin has even integrated a herd of herbivores into her army, as their thick hides have proven resistant to fire and explosives. Yet despite being surrounded by carnivores, they remain untouched. It doesn't make sense. That's not to take anything away from Mei Yin. She works hard to treat and train her animals well. She's not bad company either. At least when she's not mute and I don't go full biologist. Sometimes it felt like speaking a new language. But it's been kind of refreshing.
Well, I found the report on Mr. Nerva to be rather exaggerated, and as an Englishman, one might imagine that I'd view Roman leadership with some disdain. Yet, in my experience, I found Mr. Nerva to be both honest and intellectually engaging. In fact, after a lengthy conversation, I dare say that Mr. Nerva has the right of it when it comes to this island's politics. As the Romans created Pax Romans, perhaps this new legion will create Pax Archum. Even if it doesn't, I doubt it will harm my research. So I see no reason to interfere in this pointless squabble. After much deliberation, I have decided to accept Mr. Nerva's offer. True, the new legion is not beloved by many other tribes, but was Charlemagne beloved by his enemies? If my studies are to continue, I must be on the right side of history. As part of our agreement, I will need to travel with Mr. Nerva for a time and wait to study the obelisks until the new legion has taken care of some smaller matters of foreign policy. As such, I have left Rockwell Manor in Isabel's charge. She will take excellent care of it, I'm sure. Well then, on to new frontiers. Excelsior! I am absolutely astonished, shocked, flabbergasted. Why in the world was Miss Walker investigating the obelisks at the side of such a savage woman and without notifying me first? Was she intending to discover their secrets behind my back and keep them all to herself? The nerve! The audacity! And after I treated her with such respect and civility... Well, unfortunately for her, Sir Edmund Rockwell is always one step ahead of his rivals. Thanks to my partnership with Mr. Nerva, I can combine what scraps of knowledge she has on the obelisks with my own findings, and she'll be none the wiser. Why? Since she is confined to a cage, I can keep my presence concealed from her altogether.
Helena, you're a dipstick. Going through my notes, I've realized that there are more predators than prey across this entire island by almost double. That's the opposite of how any ecosystem is supposed to work. I can't believe it took a Tyrannosaurus frolicking through the snow for me to see this. It's plain as day. What to make of it? Add in the human factor, and it's impossible for this island to continue as it is by natural means. So, what? Is this island's wildlife being monitored and curated somehow? I should speak with Rockwell. Maybe he's come to a similar conclusion. There's nothing special about the diet of these tame creatures when compared to their wild counterparts. Part of that is the Beast Queen's doing, as she takes them on regular hunting excursions for training purposes. Curiously, they never have to range too far. There is an abundance of prey nearby, despite the size of her pack. That this is held true, regardless of her domesticated creature's remarkable birth and growth rates, makes it even more unusual. Oh, and I did finally get her name. Li Mei Yin. She's gotten a little less glary, too. In hindsight, maybe starting by studying her animal's feces just gave her the wrong impression. Found mostly in marshes and jungles, Achatina limusegnis is a very slow, very non-threatening land mollusk. It might be the simplest creature, quite possibly the most intelligent non-human creature on the island. Trudon magnanimus is an incredibly fast among the few carnivores on the island that can match tyrannosaurs in size. Spinosaurus aquareliga. Stegosaurus regium has approximately 16 paired rows of plates along its back, flanked by another, smaller pair. Among the island's most tenacious pack is Hyenodon dirus, a carnivore most often found across the mountains and tundras in packs of 3 to 6. Possessing the appearance of a half-duck, half-dinosaur, Hesperornis is a medium-sized fish-eating bird, common in the rivers and lakes of the island. Megalania murispide is among the largest creatures found throughout the island's complicated cave networks, reaching up to 3 meters long. Apparently a crossbreed of Triceratops and Styracosaurus, Triceratops styrax has both the characteristic 3-horned face of Triceratops and the prominent horned ridge of Styracosaurus. Normally a very docile grazing animal, Triceratops becomes aggressive once angered. Triceratops will chase down would-be predators and egg stealers with incredible prejudice. Running away from Triceratops is harder than it seems due to its ability to charge and ram its target. I've seen Triceratops have an especially hostile reaction to the Tyrannosaurus, with herds attacking en masse. While not very fast, Today I witnessed an unforgettable sight. The extremely rare Titanosaurus vagacastrum. Essentially a walking mountain, it is an absolutely enormous sauropod, which is Meganeura quadpenna, is an especially large species of dragonfly. Actually, it is a type of griffinfly, an extinct species of invertebrate that looked similar to dragonflies. Like most griffinflies, Meganeura is carnivorous, but it is typically not aggressive towards humans, unless provoked or challenged for food. It lives primarily in the wetter, heavier, wooded areas, such as the jungles. Meganeura is a natural predator of most of the smaller insects on the island. Didocheirus custosaxum is one of the island's non-aggressive herbivores, generally found in the mountains and grasslands. Large and...
The system has existed for eons. Considering all the variables, it has adapted well. Much like you, it has toiled to reach its goals. And it has overcome many obstacles. However,
the best adjective to describe Canis maxdirus is scary. This pack animal is a cunning and brutal predator, capable of taking down prey of nearly any size. In addition to being a vicious hunter, It is the size of a small horse, meaning even the largest predators aren't necessarily safe from the packs. I suppose it was a bit naive of me to think that someone with the moniker of Beast Queen would roll out the red carpet. I guess I got used to all of the friendly treatment that being an associate of Rockwell's earned me. She did let me stay at least. And she hasn't instructed her dinosaurs to kill me yet, so that's a positive. Not that she'd really need the dinosaurs. If that glare of hers gets any more intense, I'll probably just burst into flames on the spot. Struth, I hope she eases up. Sifting through raptor excrement with someone watching is harder than you might think. Well, the Howling Wolves are quickly tracking down the artifacts. But after hearing about what happened to the Iron Brotherhood, that's as far as they'll go. It's understandable, but it leaves me in a tight spot. If a giant spider and I get in a scrap, the spider's winning for sure. Even with Athena on my side, I prefer to avoid danger, not confront it. My aim's piss poor, and I've got fists like marshmallows. If I want a fair go at actually surviving whatever happens when the obelisk activates, I'll need backup. Negotiation notes. Don't mention feces. Don't look directly at the glare. Bring chili. Unburned. Among giant creatures I've seen on the island, Brontosaurus lazarus is larger than any sauropod I've read about. In fact, the dinosaur is so massive that it serenely ignores most other creatures. I've seen a pack of raptors tear apart small dinosaurs while Brontosaurus continues eating, seemingly oblivious to the hunting pack. Because of how docile it is, the Brontosaurus makes for an ideal pack animal. Peaceful tribes use it to carry incredible quantities of resources, while warring tribes use it to... This Nervabloke's fig jam incarnate. He seems to think he's Jupiter's gift to the island or some rubbish like that. I think his ego was actually tangible when the Legion returned from the obelisk with the third key and the head of a dragon in tow. Sadly, as much as I would enjoy seeing him fall flat on his face, I need him. And I need the new Legion. So when he asked me to guide his forces to the hidden cave, I obliged without protest. What he'll do with me afterwards? I don't know. Gigantopithecus fibrorata is a strange creature. It is usually quite passive, but it has a very short temper when it comes to its own personal space. Once another creature gets close, this gentle giant quickly becomes a rampaging beast. So these are the conquerors that I heard about way back when. Not a great first impression. Mei Yin and I weren't quite mates. But watching her creatures get slaughtered like that certainly wasn't pleasant. I'm not a fan of the prisoner lifestyle either. The leader introduced himself as Gaius Marcellus Nerva. And he's not a complete buffet, I'll give him that. He let me keep my personal effects, and our conversations have been civil so far. I get the feeling that'll change if I don't cooperate, though. Not that I have much choice. They already took the keys. The only way I'm seeing this through is as a guest of the new Legion. unbelievable. The artifact perfectly fits one of the slots in the platform's pedestal. How did I not notice that right away? I really am a dipstick. So if this key, such as it is, was acquired by activating one of the obelisks, then it follows that the other two keys can be obtained by activating the other two obelisks. Then, with all three keys, maybe this platform will lead to whatever is controlling the island's ecosystem. If the other obelisks work the way that the first one did, that means I have to find a whole mess of artifacts first. And I don't think I can do that alone. Found in smaller numbers within the island's colder regions, Chalicotherium obsidiequus is normally a peaceful herbivore that prefers to spend its days lazing about or playing with its family. It is very territorial, however, and the entire family, young and old, will turn against an encroaching creature at just the slight. Palovia maxima perfectly embodies the element of surprise. Though nenictodopids such as Palovia were once thought to be herbivores, I discovered that this creature is in fact a... Carnotaurus presa is a distinctive creature that falls between a medium and large predator. It lives primarily on flat, clear ground, where it can capitalize on its speed. Additionally, it seems to have no qualms about running away from larger predators instead of fighting. I don't know where to start with the Raniomorphus amalgotantiolus. It has so many of the nightmare-inducing traits of spiders from among many family, and were it not restricted to the waters, Carcharodon ultramegalodon would be one of the most dangerous creatures on the island. As powerful and dangerous...
The first round of trials for my new Lazarus chowder have gone marvelously, but I have found it hard to maintain my enthusiasm. After all, I will never get truly definitive results with only Mesopithecus subjects. It is quite frustrating. Even so, I see now that Isabel was right. Having my assistants take part in the trials would be asking too much of them, and they are too valuable to risk so frivolously. If I cannot find human subjects from the nearby tribes, then I shall have to make do with trials on apes and monkeys. Perhaps it is finally time to capture some Gigantopithecus.
Found only in the deepest depths of the waters around the island, Eurypterids are dangerous and adaptable arthropods. As likely to hunt as they are to scavenge, a Eurypterid rarely has difficulty finding food to keep itself nourished, even at the bottom of the ocean. A Eurypterid's threat comes not directly from its raw strength. Instead, it combines a hard defensive exoskeleton with debilitating poison to powerful effect. The sting of a Eurypterid increases torpor while...
Eureka! My theory was correct. The small podium at the base of the obelisk is definitely responding to the artifact's proximity and vice versa. Honestly, I feel foolish for not attempting this sooner. The stylistic similarities between the artifacts and the obelisks floating above the island seem so obvious to me now. Clearly, they were created within the same culture and era. Bizarrely, while both the artifact and obelisks are in exquisite condition, there are no other signs of this mysterious civilization. How could that be? What kind of mad society would gallivant about some remote island, building towering structures and stuffing knickknacks into caves before vanishing without a trace? I don't understand it, but it certainly piqued my curiosity.
The painted sharks have treated me like I'm the bloody queen since I showed them Rockwell's letter of recommendation. I don't think I've eaten better in my entire time on the island. Not that it's a high bar. I'm a horrible cook. Oh, and they've been of tremendous help with my research, of course. So far, my estimates of the predator-prey balance are consistent with the ecosystems on the mainland. The water is simply teeming with shoals of megalodons, and they are extremely aggressive. Perhaps that's a side effect of having limited prey. Sharks aren't known as territorial creatures. I'll have to study them further. When someone asks me what the fastest creatures on the island are, Gallimimus is always a contender. Unlike the island's many armored animals, Gallimimus eschews strong defenses for the ability to outrun pretty much anything. A skid Dunkleosteus loricorruptor is a very strange creature. It is a fairly large fish, covered head to tail in armored plates, with incredibly powerful jaws. Of all the abnormalities that I've observed, the tamed megalodons stick out to me. It was almost like they were stray dogs who were re-socialized, as though they had a genetic history of human obedience. Most of my observations have been in the wild. I think I may learn a thing or two if I observe domesticated creatures more closely. I need to study their diets, their mating patterns, how they socialize with other species, all that. Rumor has it that there's some woman that's tamed a whole mess of them, all by herself. So many that they call her the Beast Queen of the Jungle. Maybe she'll have some useful insights. Well, this seals it. Just when I thought I'd made some sense of the notes I took while visiting the painted sharks, I spotted the nail in the proverbial coffin. Roos. A whole herd of giant roos were just hopping about the countryside like they'd always been there. As much as I love roos, they just shouldn't be here. Period. They evolved in Oz and Oz only, 60 million years after the dinosaurs went extinct, among a bevy of other marsupials. If I know any genus, it's this one, and Prosoptodon should not exist here. This island isn't an ecosystem, it's a zoo. Oviraptor philodictor is a small to medium-sized carnivore, common in the jungles and beaches of the island. Despite being a carnivore, Oviraptor's main Raphis replicare, more commonly known as the dodo bird, is quite possibly the dumbest creature I've ever seen in my life. It wanders around the beaches of the island, pecking berries off bushes and being eaten by all manner of carnivore. Without the dodo, the whole island's food chain would disintegrate. This subspecies of the dodo has developed an unbelievably clever way to sustain itself. They mate constantly. I'm fairly convinced that they reach full maturity within a week of being born. This is the only one of the stranger creatures in the waters surrounding the island is Basilosaurus salatium facet. It's a powerful swimmer, which is adapted to the...
These tribal negotiations give me a headache every time. The Black Thumbs are mad that the Painted Sharks sunk 2 of their barges, but the Painted Sharks say that the barges were too close to Southern Haven, and they were perfectly within their rights to sink them, as per the Southern Isle Accords. Typically, neither side is willing to budge. What a bother. I'd just as soon mind-wipe the lot of them and return to my studies. Alas, such is the fate of the island's most respected neutral entity. At least the Painted Sharks brought some fresh fish. Perhaps I'll side with them.
Titanomyrma is one of the smaller creatures on the island. A frightening thought when you realize it is the size of a dog.